Women, we are the last to take a bet on ourselves. We are the last to come to say, okay, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna go for it. But the product and services that we are building and solving are truly so impactful for the world, so we have to succeed. 50% of businesses are started by women, yet less than 2% actually go on to scale beyond $1 million. And the podcast and the books and the audiobooks, and I was consuming as much business information that I could get, but everything was around how he built it. But I never got to hear how she built it. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the CEO School podcast. I'm your host, Suneera Madhani, and I am so excited to be back. We have had quite a hiatus, probably the longest that we have had over the last 5 years, filming and producing the CEO School podcast. And I cannot believe that I'm saying it's been 5 years, y'all. 5 years of showing up for a weekly show. Every year I decide, I'm like, okay, am I going to continue to do this or is it time to close it up? And every year I feel all of your energy to continue this incredible show and the conversations that we have, because they are so important. They're so meaningful. And really, it's about our business and scaling like a CEO. But honestly, my favorite conversations that I get to have with our guests and with all of you is really about scaling our life as a CEO. And this season, I'm so excited to bring those conversations back, but even make it deeper and more meaningful. I feel so grateful for the journey that you and I have had over the last 5 years. And if you are an original OG listener, welcome back. Thank you for showing up for us. And if you are a new listener, welcome to the show. This space is truly an authentic space with real conversations, vulnerable conversations about what it takes to actually be a female founder in today's world, what it takes to juggle life, business, kids, productivity, your health, wellness, mindset, all of the things that are on our plates as busy women today with our full lives, all while still trying to be ambitious, scaling our companies, and trying to, at the same time, be a good human. And it's just not easy. And so I think that these conversations are so important. We started this podcast in 2020, and I remember launching the first episode right out of my laptop, like literally plugged in the laptop. And I'll take us back to the story of how it all began. I was showing up online on social media, and this is, I'm going to date myself with like when Instagram Live had first come out. And we were having a conversation called Wind Down Wednesday every Wednesday on my social. We probably had about 30 to 40 people show up for those Wind Down Wednesdays, and it was female founders, and we'd have conversations around scaling business. Like that's primarily where the conversation was. And at the time, Stacks was roughly around 20 million in revenue. And I had recently learned a statistic that less than 2% of female founders ever broke $1 million in revenue. And I was appalled and also just really shocked by that statistic. And I think even for new listeners that might be tuning in that haven't heard that, 50% of businesses are started by women, yet less than 2% actually go on to scale beyond $1 million. And at that time in 2020, we had raised venture capital. We were scaling our companies. I probably had a team of between 75 people. So it was like a busy scaling tech company. And I read that Forbes article and I thought to myself, I'm like, what made our story different? Like this just does not seem possible that it is that small of a percentage pool that we're making it, and that men are actually 8 times more likely to hit those same stats. And in every conversation, every room, every panel, every stage that I was walking into, the conversation was, how do we get access to capital for women, raising venture capital for women, and the gap in venture capital, which also at the time was less than 3% of female founders were able to successfully raise venture capital. So the conversations were around venture capital. However, when you look back and I was doing that deeper assessment while talking to actual female founders, if we aren't breaking beyond that $1 million in revenue, then of course we're not going to get access to venture capital, because venture capitalists and investors aren't investing in companies that are not scaling beyond, that are beyond that $1 million mark. And getting to the $1 million mark, it's not about, it's not just the milestone over it. It's about scalability in your business, right? So it's showing investors and it's proving that you have a product market fit already, that you have customers willing to pay for your product. You've already kind of worked out the kinks of that 0 to 1 million. And the scale portion is really when the fun begins on taking this from that 1 to 10 million to 100 million. And there's different stages along the way. But the conversations were so focused on venture and places where I was seated. I felt like conversation needed to flip. How can we actually empower women to go not just build businesses, but to build bigger businesses, big businesses? And that's really where the conversation stemmed from my Instagram in 2020 to opening up the laptop to recording our first episode. And it was because the pandemic had hit. And we were talking about, like, on my Instagram live, I remember I was saying it was about 40 people that would show up. The next, like, when the pandemic hit, that week, we shut down, like the world was shut down. There were so many unknowns. And that Wind Down Wednesday, I had the highest attended IG live that I had ever had. And it was probably about a couple hundred women that showed up. And there were questions around what we're doing for our employees. Like, what does this mean for our business? What do we need to do? And we were having those honest conversations. And I was like, where is the space? Like, is this the only space that we can go to go meet other female founders and to have these conversations at that level of scale? And the next day I had to do the Instagram live again because I had to turn it off. And I had a 3-year-old at the time, and Anna was just born. So I'm like closing up and I'm like, okay, I'll see you guys tomorrow. I'll come back because couldn't wait another week. And we did the Instagram live again, and there was a couple hundred more. And then the next night there was over 1,000 women that showed up to that Instagram live. And that was that moment that I knew that this conversation is important, that we need to be able to share these conversations. The conversations were actual, like, playbook sharing, what we're doing, what's happening, and like what are the communications, like truly sharing communications that we were having with our customers, with our employees. And what's crazy is that in the venture world that I was in, we had those conversations in the boys club, right? So I've always been part of the boys club my entire life. One, just being around an entrepreneurial dad, having my brother as my co-founder. I met Faisal at such a young age. He came to my 21st birthday, and he's been in business for so long. I have been in the boys business world for quite some time. And then with Stacks being, raising venture capital, being I was the first portfolio company for our VCs. I was the first female founder within their entire portcos. So I was showing up for all of these conversations. And honestly, the boys club, they welcomed me to the best extent that they could. But the conversations that I was happening in the other room were so different than the conversations that were happening in my female founder circles. And I could clearly see that gap and the juxtaposition between the two worlds. And that is why this podcast was created and formed. And I took it off of that IG live that day. And I was like, what is next? I didn't even have a microphone or an editor or anything like that. I'm like, this is where we just need to carry this conversation. And the podcast and the books and the audiobooks, and I was consuming as much business information that I could get, but everything was around how he built it, right? And I can remember some of my favorite shows that I would listen to and founder stories, and it was all about how he successfully built this. And it was so inspirational and exciting, but I never got to hear how she built it. I never got to hear about stories of actual women scaling businesses. And I loved hearing the celebrity founder stories. I loved hearing the stories of the massive exits. But what about the ones that are just a few steps ahead of me, that I can actually take the playbooks and apply it right now into my world? I was a new mom having a 3-year-old and a newborn baby during the pandemic while scaling a company and 100 employees. What was happening in my world, in my mindset, in my psyche, in my day-to-day was not the same that was happening I couldn't find my tribe. And I needed to have those honest conversations of, what am I doing with my kids right now, right? How am I balancing? And we all know that there's no such thing as balance, but what does this life actually look like to live a life as a CEO, right? In business and in life. And the next part about this of being a CEO, right? I didn't see CEOs that looked like me. I always considered myself a founder. And for so long, I struggled with calling myself a CEO. Why? Because I wasn't pale, male, or stale, right? I didn't fit the mold. And you really start to believe what you see. And I wanted to see more women like me that were also claiming their space from founder to CEO. My company wasn't just a small company anymore. We were scaling, we were growing, and I had big plans. I wanted to build a unicorn, which we successfully ended up doing, and scaling this company from just myself, just the idea, to over $1 billion exit. And I didn't go to CEO school, but I showed up every day for a job that was harder than the one I had yesterday. And I wanted to ensure that that was my seat, that I was able to grow my company and exit my company into the biggest, wildest dream that I could imagine. And that is what I want for you as well. I want this, and after being a girl mom as well, and literally over the last 5 years with CEO school, with this platform, with social media, with all the mentorship that I've done, I have spoken to thousands of female founders. And the one thing that I will say that I find the most special about us is that I never meet a woman who is just, oh, I just started a business for the shit's sake of starting a business. She started it because she couldn't find a solution for her child. She had this huge challenge, this huge pain point in her industry, and no one else was solving for it. Women, we are the last to take a bet on ourselves. We are the last to come to say, okay, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna go for it. But the product and services that we are building and solving are truly so impactful for the world. So we have to succeed. And we can't just play small. And that's where big business energy comes into play. I started a weekly newsletter. Every Thursday it goes out, and we are talking about the conversations beyond that 2%. So I'm so proud of the movement that began in 2020. And I love that this conversation has flowed from our podcast to so many others, and to now women scaling their businesses beyond that 7-figure mark. But what's next is even greater for our legacy. Over the last decade in building and over the last 5 years of this podcast, I love that I've been able to grow with you and share my journey with you. I think what started in 2020 also continued to evolve as life evolved, right? And prioritizing myself and freedom became important too. A lot of the times when we start businesses, it's about that impact. It's about that freedom of dollar. But what I quickly learned is that my freedom of time is so valuable, that my voice matters, that the impact matters, and that I do want to ensure that I'm also building my business on my terms that fit into my life. That the boys club is going to tell me what I should be doing, but I do need to assess to make sure that what is in alignment with the goals that I have. And so the conversation has continued to evolve in not just in business, but also in all the ways that we are as a woman. And I love being a woman. I love the feminine energy that I get to bring. And for so long, I hid my femininity. I hid that side of me. I left it at the door when I walked into the office. I left it at the door when I was walking into rooms with the boys club. I even left it in the room sometimes when I was walking into events with women. And what I learned is I really want to embrace every part of me. And the best parts about me are the softer ones. They're the direct ones, but they're also the softer ones. I love being a wife. I love being a mom. I love having all of the other titles that I carry, not just as a CEO. And I know that you do too. I know that you want to not just build a life and a business for yourself, but for that legacy that goes beyond you. You want to have an impact on your community. You want to create products and services that touch the lives of so many. And I want that for you. And I want you to have all of that without losing yourself. Because I was so tired of the narrative that I had to choose. So the conversation, even today, is that you can't have it all at once. I am so tired of that narrative. I deserve to have it all. You deserve to have it all. Whatever all looks like for you. And that is what this season is going to be about, because we do deserve to have it all. We deserve to have freedom of time. We deserve to have freedom of dollar. We deserve to have impact. And we deserve to take care of ourselves and be our best version of us without the hustle, without the burnout, and in a way that feels authentically you. So welcome back to this season of the CEO School podcast. I hope you are feeling my energy. I need your energy. It is my favorite space and the most sacred space that I have, because you and I get to tune in every single week for these conversations. I am so grateful for the time that you give me. My love language is quality time. So for those that have listened to a couple of episodes, I always talk about knowing our love languages, and my love language is quality time. So for me, this is my one-on-one time with you, and it's the most sacred space. So I'm going to give it my all this season, and I hope you give me your all back too. We are so excited to reach millions. That is what my goal is right now, is to ensure that these conversations are not just happening in our rooms, but I want to spread this message that we do deserve to have it all. And every founder everywhere needs to hear this. So if you can help us out, tag this episode, share this episode, tell someone about CEO School, and leave us a review. That's how we're going to grow the show and get the most incredible guests on. So 5 years in, it's a new season. I'm ready for the next rocket ship. And I'm so grateful that you're joining us today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next episode of CEO School.